Your parasite life is over, my wife declared after her promotion, saying we would each pay our own expenses from now on. I agreed. Then on Saturday, her brother came for lunch, looked at the table, looked at me, and said, it's about time she finally found out. Your parasite life is over. That was the first thing she said when she walked through the door after her big promotion. No hello, no I'm home. Just a cold, sharp declaration that cut through the silence of our living room. Sarah had just been made senior VP of operations. I'd spent the last 3 years working from home, pulling 60-hour weeks as a freelance consultant to pay off her MBA loans, our mortgage, and her car note. But in her mind, because I was the one at the kitchen table in a hoodie, while she was in power suits, I was the one dragging her down. From now on, she said, tossing her designer bag onto the counter, we pay our own way. For 50. Every meal, every utility, every cent. I worked too hard for this title to let you bleed me dry. I looked at her for a long time. I didn't argue. I didn't remind her who paid for that bag. I just nodded. I agree, I said quietly. If that's what you want, that's exactly how we'll live. The shift was immediate. For the next 2 weeks, I stopped buying her groceries. I stopped filling her tank. I even stopped paying the subscription for the streaming services she used. I opened a separate account and moved. My savings there. Savings she didn't realize were 3 times her new annual salary. Then came Saturday. Sarah's brother Mark came over for lunch. Mark was the golden boy of their family. A guy who lived for optics and looked down on anyone who didn't work in a high-rise. Sarah had spent the whole morning bragging to him about her new independence and how she was finally handling the dead weight. I spent the morning in the kitchen. I prepared a massive decadent spread. Wagyu sliders, truffle fries, and a bottle of vintage wine that cost more than her new monthly raise. When they sat down, Sarah reached for a slider. I gently moved the tray toward my side of the table. What are you doing? She snapped, her face flushing. We agreed, Sarah, I said, my voice calm and level. 50-50, each paying our own expenses. I bought these ingredients. This is my lunch. She laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. Mark is here. Don't be pathetic. Just pass the tray. I can't, I replied. That would be me subsidizing your lifestyle. And you made it very clear you're done with parasites. The table went dead silent. Mark looked at the Wagyu. He looked at the wine. Then he looked at me. A strange, knowing smirk forming on his lips. It's about time she finally found out, Mark said, leaning back in his chair. Sarah turned to him, confused. Found out what? Mark, tell him he's being a child. Mark shook his head, looking at his sister with something like pity. Sarah, you really thought you were the one carrying this house? I am, she yelled. I just got promoted. He sits at a desk all day doing whatever he does. Mark laughed then. A real deep laugh. Sarah, I work in commercial real estate. I see the contracts. I've known for 2 years. He turned to me. Tell her. Or should I? I took a slow sip of the wine. The burn was perfect. The house isn't ours, Sarah, I said. It's mine. I bought it in cash before we even got married. The mortgage you thought you were contributing to? That was just me letting you pay the property taxes so you'd feel like a partner. Her jaw dropped. What? And your MBA? I continued. I didn't take out a loan. I paid it off in the first 6 months. I just let the monthly payments come out of our joint account so you wouldn't feel guilty about me being the primary earner. I pulled a folder from under my chair and slid it across the table. It wasn't divorce papers. It was a lease agreement. Since you want to pay your own way, here's the market rate rent for your half of my house, I said. Plus the invoice for the last 2 weeks of utilities I've covered. Sarah looked at the numbers, then back at me. Her face went from red to a ghostly, sickly white. She realized in that moment that her big promotion salary wouldn't even cover the lifestyle I had been silently providing for her for years. You lied to me, she whispered, her voice trembling. No, I corrected her. I supported you. I protected your ego. But you called me a parasite in my own home. You wanted a business arrangement instead of a marriage? Fine. I stood up, taking the tray of sliders with me. Lunch is over, I said. Mark, there's a deli down the street. Sarah, I expect the first month's rent by Monday. Since you're so successful now, I'm sure you won't have any trouble being independent. I walked out of the room, leaving her sitting at an empty table in a house she couldn't afford. Realized too late that the man she thought she was carrying was the only thing keeping her afloat.